Welcome to the Conspiracy Theory Iceberg, a series that takes you deep into a world where the line between fact and fiction blurs, and the truth is often stranger than fiction. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, prepare to question everything you thought you knew. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe and share this video with your various co-conspirators. The influential ideas of Edward Bernays, the father of propaganda. Edward Bernays is one of the most influential figures in human history, yet his name is not widely known outside of specialized circles. His work fundamentally transformed the ways in which information is disseminated and opinions are shaped, and his influence continues to permeate every aspect of contemporary life. Born in 1891 in Vienna, Bernays was the nephew of Sigmund Freud, and he heavily drew upon his uncle's insights into human psychology. Bernays recognized early on that understanding the subconscious desires and irrational motivations of individuals could be powerful tools in influencing mass behavior. This insight laid the groundwork for what would become his pioneering work in public relations and propaganda. Bernays' career took a significant turn during World War I when he worked for the Committee on Public Information, a U.S. government agency responsible for promoting the war effort. Through his work with the CPI, Bernays realized the potential of propaganda, not just as a wartime tool, but as a mechanism that could be employed in peacetime to mold public opinion. He saw that the techniques used to influence enemy and neutral nations could be repurposed to manipulate the thoughts and behaviors of civilians in everyday life. This realization was the seed that grew into his lifelong advocacy for what he termed the engineering of consent. In 1928, Bernays published his seminal book, which was very literally entitled Propaganda, in which he argued that the manipulation of the habits and opinions of the masses is a critical element in open societies. He believed that those who control this unseen mechanism of society constitute a quote-unquote invisible government that holds the true power in a country. According to Bernays, democracy's survival depended on the ability of this elite to manage the public's perception and maintain social order through carefully orchestrated propaganda campaigns. Bernays didn't shy away from the term propaganda, although the word has since taken on a heavily negative connotation due to its association with totalitarian regimes. In his time, Bernays rebranded the concept as public relations to distance his work from the more sinister implications of propaganda, especially after World War II. Nonetheless, the core principles remain the same. Control the narrative, and you control the people. Control the people, and you control the world. Therefore, to control the world, all you need to do is control the narrative. Bernays' methods were based on the belief that people are irrational and need to be guided by those who understand the mechanisms of social control. One of the most famous examples of Bernays' work is the Torches of Freedom campaign, which he orchestrated on behalf of a sinister corporation. In the 1920s, smoking among women was taboo, but the industry saw a lucrative market in changing this perception. Double your customers and double your profit, so the logic went. Bernays ingeniously tied the act to the women's liberation movement, staging a now infamous event where young women, referred to as Freedom Marchers, lit up during the Easter Sunday parade in NYC. This stunt, which framed this as an act of defiance against societal norms, was a resounding success and significantly increased sales amongst women. Bernays' influence extended far beyond commercial advertising. He was involved in campaigns too, most notably helping to shape the public image of Calvin Coolidge. Interestingly, Bernays' ideas were not only influential in the United States, but also attracted attention from some of the darkest figures in history. Joseph Goebbels, the Minister of Propaganda, studied Bernays' work and applied similar techniques to propagate his ideologies and bolster the regime's control over Germany. Edward Bernays rightfully holds the title of the most influential person you've never heard of. Further, his extreme influence shows that power is often exercised in the most covert and subtle ways, over extremely long periods of time. That is to say, the most effective exercises of influence are those influences which are made so subtly and gradually that the individual being influenced doesn't even notice. The law of attraction and the concept of manifestation have garnered significant attention and popularity in recent years. These concepts hinge on the belief that thoughts, whether positive or negative, can influence one's life experiences. The law of attraction suggests that like attracts like, meaning that if you focus on positive thoughts, positive outcomes will manifest in your life, and conversely, negative thoughts will bring about negative experiences. The roots of the law of attraction is thought to be traced back to the early 19th century, with thinkers who emphasized mind over body type philosophies. The term itself was first used by American spiritualist Andrew Jackson Davis in 1855 in the context of spiritual beliefs concerning the human soul and the afterlife. However, it wasn't until the late 19th century that the law of attraction was explicitly articulated as a principle by Prentice Mulford. Mulford argued that thinking positive thoughts attracts positive things, which remains the core of the law of attraction. Throughout the 20th century, the law of attraction gained momentum, particularly through influential self-help books, like Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich in 1937. Though this work did not directly cite the law of attraction, it propagated the idea that one's mindset could significantly impact one's material and spiritual success. The law of attraction entered mainstream consciousness in the early 21st century, largely due to the success of the film and book The Secret by Rhonda Byrne. The Secret popularized the law of attraction by presenting it as a form of esoteric knowledge that could lead to wealth, health, and happiness. This work suggests that by focusing on what you want, visualizing it, and maintaining a positive mindset, you can attract your desires into your life. The book and film became a cultural phenomenon, selling millions of copies worldwide and inspiring countless individuals to adopt manifestation practices. One of the key aspects emphasized by Byrne is the power of gratitude and visualization. According to The Secret, expressing gratitude for what you already have and vividly imagining your desired outcomes are essential practices for activating the law of attraction. These ideas resonate with many people who believe that they have experienced real-life benefits by following these principles. The law of attraction has had a profound impact on popular culture, particularly within the self-help industry. It has inspired a wide range of books, seminars, workshops, and online courses aimed at teaching individuals how to manifest their desires. Proponents of the law of attraction often cite personal anecdotes of success, claiming that by changing their mindset, they have attracted wealth, health, and fulfilling relationships. The conspiracy theory that the law of attraction is being suppressed puts forth that powerful entities or groups intentionally prevent widespread knowledge and acceptance of the idea. The purpose of this is to maintain control over the masses. Proponents of this theory argue that the principles behind the law of attraction empower individuals to break free from societal, financial, and certain governmental constraints. If widely embraced, they believe that this knowledge could lead to a significant shift in power dynamics, enabling individuals to attain wealth, health, and happiness independently of traditional power structures. Supporters of this conspiracy theory often claim that mainstream media, educational institutions, and the scientific community deliberately dismiss or ridicule the theory as pseudoscience to keep the public unaware of its potential. They suggest that the promotion of skepticism towards the law of attraction serves the interests of the elite that benefits from a population that feels powerless and dependent on external systems. After all, if individuals were empowered to be financially free and successful, would they really give up large portions of their lives to enhance the wealth of the ultra-rich? This theory is sometimes linked with broader ideas about the suppression of esoteric knowledge, which has been purportedly hidden throughout history by secret societies or religious institutions. Another particularly interesting conspiracy theory suggests that the elite may be actively using the law of attraction against the general populace. Some argue that, quote, doomer content is being deliberately promoted to exploit the negative aspects of the law of attraction. This theory holds that certain powers or entities are intentionally pushing pessimistic and defeatist narratives to manipulate the public's mindset. Doomer content typically includes media and online discussions that emphasize bleak, hopeless outlooks on the future, often focusing on economic collapse, environmental disaster, or social decay. By saturating the public with negative imagery and ideas, these forces aim to harness the law of attraction's principle that negative thoughts can manifest negative outcomes. Theorists argue that thoughts can indeed influence reality, and widespread exposure to doomer content could collectively drive society toward the very disasters these narratives depict. This is seen as a form of psychological manipulation, where fear, anxiety, and hopelessness are amplified to ensure that people remain trapped in a cycle of negativity, thereby creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. Supporters of this theory believe that promoting such content serves the interests of those who benefit from a disempowered, fearful, and divided population. By keeping people focused on negative outcomes, these entities can maintain control and prevent the public from realizing their potential to create positive change. If this theory resonates with you, make sure to stay tuned because I'll be going into a specific case where some theorize this tactic is being used later in the video. The New World Order, or NWO conspiracy theory, proposes the existence of a secretive global elite working to establish an authoritarian world government. This theory suggests that a group of powerful individuals and organizations are conspiring to control the world by manipulating political, economic, and social systems to serve their own interests. The roots of the New World Order conspiracy theory can be traced back to the early 20th century, particularly in the context of the post-World War I and II periods. During these times, the notion of a New World Order was used in a more benign sense by political leaders and thinkers to describe a hopeful restructuring of international relations to prevent future conflicts. However, as global institutions like the United Nations were established, some groups, particularly in the United States, began to view these developments with suspicion. They feared that such organizations were a cover for a globalist agenda aimed at eroding national sovereignty and establishing a centralized world government. The conspiracy theory gained significant traction during the Cold War era. During this time, fears of communism and concerns about international cooperation fueled the belief that a secretive cabal was working behind the scenes to establish a collectivist, atheistic world government. At the heart of the New World Order conspiracy theory is the belief that a global elite, often referred to as globalists, are working to undermine national governments and establish a totalitarian world state. This elite is typically described as consisting of powerful individuals from various sectors, including international banking, politics, media, and business. The theory often identifies specific organizations, such as the World Economic Forum, Council on Foreign Relations, and the Trilateral Commission, amongst others, as key players in this global conspiracy. One of the central tenets of the theory is the idea that these elites use crises, whether economic, political, or social, to advance their agenda. This concept, known as problem-reaction-solution, suggests that the global elite deliberately create or exacerbate crises to manipulate public opinion and justify the implementation of their policies. Another recurring theme in NWO conspiracy theories is the role of secret societies. The Freemasons and the Illuminati are frequently mentioned as being part of the global elite's network. These societies are often accused of practicing occult rituals and harboring hidden agendas that align with the goals of the New World Order. This aspect of the theory has deep historical roots, with anti-Masonic and anti-Illuminati sentiments dating back to the 18th and 19th centuries. In the post-Cold War era, the focus of the New World Order conspiracy theory shifted from fears of communism to concerns about globalization and the perceived erosion of national sovereignty. The theory gained new life in the 1990s and 2000s as economic globalization accelerated and international institutions like the World Trade Organization and the International Monetary Fund became more prominent. For many proponents of the NWO theory, these organizations are seen as tools of the global elite, designed to impose a new form of economic and political control over nations. In recent years, the theory has further evolved to incorporate elements of contemporary political and social issues. For example, the concept of predictive programming has emerged, suggesting that the global elite use media and entertainment to subtly condition the public to accept their agenda. Similarly, the rise of social media has allowed the theory to spread more widely and rapidly. The attempts on Fidel Castro by the United States are among the most infamous covert operations in modern history, reflecting the deep animosity between the two nations during the Cold War. The sheer number of attempts on Castro's life, reportedly totaling over 600 according to Cuban intelligence, allegedly showcases the relentless pursuit by the CIA and other U.S. entities to end him. These efforts included a wide array of schemes, from the conventional to the utterly bizarre, and spanned multiple U.S. administrations. One of the earliest and most notorious operations against Castro was the Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961. This operation was a failed military invasion of Cuba, undertaken by a CIA-sponsored paramilitary group composed of Cuban exiles. Although not directly an attempt on Castro's life, it was part of a broader strategy to overthrow Castro's government, which, if successful, would likely have led to his capture and elimination. The failure of this invasion marked a significant escalation in U.S. efforts to eliminate Castro, leading to more covert and direct attempts on his life. Following the Bay of Pigs, the CIA intensified its efforts under the guise of Operation Mongoose, a covert program authorized by President John F. Kennedy. Operation Mongoose included numerous plots to assassinate Castro, ranging from poison-laced cigars and explosive seashells to more direct approaches like hiring mafia professionals. The use of the mafia in these plots highlighted the extent to which the U.S. government was willing to collaborate with criminal organizations and is a conspiracy in and of itself. However, not all these plots against Castro were as deadly as one might expect. One of the more peculiar plots involved an attempt to discredit Castro by using chemicals to make his iconic beard fall out. This plan was part of a broader psychological warfare strategy that aimed not only to kill Castro, but to undermine his public image. The CIA believed that causing Castro to lose his beard would diminish his charisma and leadership stature among the Cuban people. This plan, like many others, was never actually executed, but had gotten fairly far into the planning stages. The attempts on Castro's life continued into the 1970s and beyond, with each administration from Eisenhower to Clinton allegedly endorsing various schemes to eliminate him. Despite these relentless efforts, Castro survived each attempt, often publicly mocking the U.S. government's failures. His survival became a symbol of his resilience and a propaganda victory for his regime. In the later years, the nature of these attempts evolved, becoming more elaborate and involving a wider array of participants, including Cuban exiles and foreign mercenaries. For instance, in 2000, a plot was uncovered in Panama where over 200 pounds of explosives were placed under a podium where Castro was scheduled to speak. This plot, too, was foiled by Castro's security team, further adding to his near-mythical ability to evade death. The sheer volume of these assassination attempts has been a source of fascination and controversy. The Church Committee in the 1970s, which investigated U.S. intelligence activities, confirmed at least 8 serious CIA attempts on Castro's life during the 1960s. The conspiracy theory that the CIA might not have wanted Fidel Castro dead but instead kept him alive to justify a larger budget has circulated among some skeptics of U.S. intelligence operations. This theory suggests that Castro's continued existence provided the CIA with a convenient enemy, which in turn justified ongoing funding, resources, and expanded powers for the agency. The basis of this theory lies in the numerous failed assassination attempts against Castro, despite the vast resources and advanced techniques at the CIA's disposal. Critics argue that the sheer incompetence displayed in these attempts could point to a deliberate effort to maintain Castro as a perpetual threat. By keeping him alive, the CIA could argue that more funds were needed to counter the communist threat in the Western Hemisphere. Notably, the agency's budget, influence, and overall power grew significantly during the 1960s, a period marked by high-profile failures like the Bay of Pigs invasion and the numerous botched attempts. But in the immortal words of a certain television pitchman, "But wait, there's more." Some have speculated that the CIA and the Castro regime were, in essence, in cahoots with regards to these so-called attempts on Castro's life. The theory that Fidel Castro's regime may have exaggerated or even fabricated assassination attempts as part of a myth-making process is an intriguing one. This perspective claims that Castro and his government used the narrative of surviving countless assassination attempts to enhance his image as an indomitable leader among the Cuban population. According to this theory, the stories of numerous failed CIA plots, from poisoned cigars to exploding seashells, serve to portray Castro as a David against the American Goliath. By presenting himself as a leader constantly under threat from the most powerful nation on earth, Castro could foster a sense of unity and defiance among Cubans. This thus bolstered his legitimacy and reinforced the revolutionary spirit that was central to his regime's identity. Additionally, the image of Castro as a survivor of numerous assassination attempts also played well on the global stage, allowing him to position himself as a symbol of resistance against imperialism. This narrative was especially powerful in the context of the Cold War, where Castro's survival became a metaphor for the resilience of socialist and anti-colonial movements worldwide. While there is no conclusive evidence that all the assassination attempts were fabricated, some historians and analysts suggest that the Cuban government may have at least embellished certain aspects. The sheer number of alleged plots, over 600 according to Cuban intelligence, raises questions about the feasibility of such a large-scale effort and whether some of these claims were exaggerated. Jimmy here, taking a quick moment to promote my channel. Remember to like and subscribe, and also share this video with any of your friends who may have an interest in conspiracy theories or questions about the nature of the world around us. If you want to take your support to the next level, consider signing up for a YouTube membership or for the Patreon. Once I get a few more active patrons that are interested in conspiracy theory content, I'll start posting some exclusive content on Patreon that, to put it mildly, is not viable on this platform. Tarot cards originated in the mid-15th century as playing cards in Europe. They evolved over time into a tool for spiritual guidance and fortune-telling, particularly from the late 18th century onwards. Today, they are widely associated with mystical and occult practices, serving as a bridge between the material and spiritual worlds. A typical tarot deck consists of 78 cards, which are divided into two main groups, the major arcana and the minor arcana. The major arcana consists of 22 cards, each depicting significant life events, spiritual lessons, and archetypal energies. These cards are believed to hold the most profound and influential messages in a reading, often symbolizing major life transitions or spiritual insights. Some of the most well-known cards in this group include the Fool, the Magician, and the World, each carrying unique symbolism and meaning. The minor arcana, on the other hand, comprises 56 cards that are divided into four suits: wands, cups, swords, and pentacles. Each suit is associated with a different element and represents various aspects of daily life. The minor arcana cards are often seen as reflecting more mundane, yet still significant matters, such as relationships, finances, and personal challenges. The belief in the powers of tarot cards is deeply rooted in their use for divination. Practitioners of tarot, known as tarot readers, use the cards to gain insight into the past, present, and potential future of an individual. The cards are shuffled and drawn in a specific spread, with each position in the spread representing different aspects of the individual's life. The reader then interprets the cards based on their positions, the images depicted, and the traditional meanings associated with each card. One of the most critical aspects of tarot reading is the role of intuition. While the cards have traditional meanings, the interpretation is highly subjective and relies heavily on the reader's intuitive abilities. A skilled tarot reader combines their understanding of the card's symbolism with their intuitive insights to provide guidance that is tailored to the individual's unique situation. The power of tarot cards, therefore, lies not just in the cards themselves, but in the connection between the reader and the person receiving the reading. The act of shuffling the deck and drawing the cards is seen as a way of aligning with the energies of the universe, allowing the reader to tap into a deeper level of consciousness. This process is believed to reveal truths that might not be apparent through ordinary means of understanding. Evidence for this includes the fact that statistically, no one will ever see the same tarot drawing twice, and thus every reading is entirely unique. Tarot cards are often viewed as tools for tapping into the subconscious mind and the collective unconscious, a concept popularized by Carl Jung. Jungian psychology suggests that the symbols and archetypes found in the tarot resonate with the universal human experience, making them powerful tools for self-reflection and personal growth. For example, the Fool card, which represents new beginnings and potential, can be interpreted as an encouragement to embrace new opportunities without fear. Further, this card is generally regarded as a card of infinite potential. In addition to their psychological significance, tarot cards are also associated with esoteric traditions and occult practices. Some believe that the cards are connected to ancient wisdom from civilizations such as Egypt, or with Christian or Kabbalistic mystical traditions. Tarot cards are also used in rituals and magical practices, where they are believed to enhance the practitioner's connection to the spiritual realm. The symbolism within the cards is thought to carry specific energies that can be harnessed for various purposes, such as manifesting desires or protecting against negative influences. David Icke is one of the most prominent figures in the realm of conspiracy theories, gaining worldwide attention for his controversial claims. His theories span a wide range of topics, from reptilian overlords controlling the world to the New World Order and beyond. David Icke began his public career as a professional footballer and later transitioned into sports broadcasting. However, in 1990, he had a profound spiritual experience that led him to believe he was on a mission to save the world. This revelation marked the beginning of his journey into the world of conspiracy theories. By 1991, Icke had begun to publicly declare his beliefs, which would later evolve into a complex web of interconnected theories that challenged the very fabric of mainstream understanding of the world. Icke's major contribution to conspiracy theories is the belief that the world is controlled by a race of shape-shifting reptilian humanoids. According to Icke, these reptilians originate from the Alpha Draconis star system and have been manipulating human history for millennia. Icke argues that these reptilians are responsible for a global conspiracy to enslave humanity through various means, including control of the media, financial institutions, and governments. Icke's theories are not limited to the idea that reptilian overlords and their consequences have been a disaster for the human race. He is also a major proponent of the New World Order conspiracy theory. As discussed earlier in this video, this theory posits that a secretive global elite is working to establish a one-world government that would erode national sovereignty and individual autonomy. Icke believes that this agenda is being pursued through various means, including orchestrated economic collapses, engineered conflicts, and the spread of fear through crisis events. Icke's version of the New World Order theory draws on elements from older conspiracy theories, such as those involving the Illuminati and the Freemasons. He argues that these groups are merely tools of the reptilian overlords, who use them to achieve their ends. Despite, or perhaps because of, the controversy surrounding his theories, David Icke has managed to build a substantial following. His books, lectures, and videos have reached millions of people worldwide. Some conspiracy theorists posit that David Icke himself might be a disinformation agent. This theory suggests that Icke, using his prominent position as a critic of global elites, could be intentionally spreading false information to discredit legitimate truth seekers. Proponents of this theory argue that the extreme nature of Icke's claims, such as the existence of reptilian overlords, serves to discredit more plausible conspiracies by association. According to this line of thinking, by linking outlandish ideas with other conspiracy theories, Icke effectively makes it easier for mainstream society and media to dismiss all conspiracy theories as baseless or absurd. This theory reflects the deep mistrust that many people have towards figures who achieve significant influence. Ancient astronaut theory is a controversial hypothesis that proposes the idea that extraterrestrial beings visited Earth in antiquity and made significant contributions to human civilizations. This theory has intrigued many and has inspired countless books, documentaries, and perhaps most notably, the television series Ancient Aliens. The origins of this theory can be traced back to early science fiction, but it gained widespread attention in the 20th century through the works of key figures such as Erich von Däniken and Zecharia Sitchin. The concept of ancient astronauts is rooted in the idea of paleocontact, the supposed prehistoric interactions between humans and extraterrestrial beings. Early references to such ideas appeared in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, particularly in the realm of science fiction, with H.G. Wells being particularly famous for this. Early fictional accounts laid the groundwork for more serious interpretations of ancient astronaut theories in the decades that followed. The theory gained significant traction in the 1960s, largely due to the publication of Erich von Däniken's book, Chariots of the Gods, in 1968. Von Däniken argued that many ancient structures, such as the Egyptian pyramids, Stonehenge, and the Moai statues of Easter Island, were far too advanced to have been constructed by the societies that built them. Instead, he suggested that these were the works of extraterrestrial visitors, or that these civilizations had received advanced knowledge from these beings. Von Däniken also interpreted ancient artwork and religious texts as depictions of astronauts, spacecraft, and other advanced technology that could not have been understood by people of that era. Another significant proponent of the ancient astronaut theory is Zecharia Sitchin, whose work focused on the Sumerian civilization. In his 1976 book, The 12th Planet, Sitchin proposed that the Anunnaki, a group of deities in Sumerian mythology, were actually extraterrestrial beings from a planet called Nibiru. According to Sitchin, these beings created humans through genetic engineering to mine the planet of resources for them, to sustain their interstellar empire. He argued that many ancient texts, including the Bible, were misinterpreted accounts of real events involving these extraterrestrial visitors. Sitchin's interpretations of ancient texts were controversial, and his work has been criticized by scholars for inaccuracies in translation and interpretation. Nevertheless, his ideas have had a lasting impact on the development of the ancient astronaut theory. The ancient astronaut theory has had a profound influence on popular culture. One of the most notable examples is the television series Ancient Aliens, which premiered in 2009. The series, which is heavily inspired by the works of von Daniken in particular, explores the idea that extraterrestrials have been visiting Earth for thousands of years. The show presents a wide range of evidence, from ancient texts and artifacts to unexplained phenomena. This evidence is generally presented in a way to suggest support for the hypothesis that ancient civilizations were influenced by advanced beings from other worlds. The series has been both popular and polarizing, with some viewers captivated by the possibilities it presents, while others dismiss it as pseudoscience. The concept that the ancient astronaut theory might be a psyop intended to demoralize humanity suggests that the theory could be designed to undermine human confidence in our own capabilities. Some argue that by attributing the achievements of ancient civilizations to extraterrestrial intervention, the theory subtly implies that humans are incapable of such monumental feats on our own. This could foster a belief that human innovation, creativity, and perseverance are insufficient without outside help, thus weakening our collective self-esteem and confidence in what we, as a species, can accomplish. The cover-up of the true nature of biblically accurate angels. The portrayal of angels in the Bible contrasts sharply with the popularized images that dominate modern culture. Far from the serene, human-like figures with wings, biblically accurate angels often evoke feelings of awe and terror due to their complex and often bizarre or disturbing appearances. One of the most striking depictions of angels in the Bible is that of the seraphim, described in the book of Isaiah. The seraphim are said to have 6 wings, 2 covering their faces, 2 covering their feet, and 2 used for flying. The covering of the face symbolizes their humility and reverence before God, as they cannot gaze directly upon His holiness. The wings covering their feet may indicate a state of readiness or concealment of their lower form, while the flying wings signify their movement within the heavenly realms. The seraphim are positioned around the throne of God, continually proclaiming His holiness. The Hebrew term seraph translates to burning ones, possibly alluding to their fiery appearance or the intensity of their divine light. Equally fascinating are the cherubim, described primarily in the book of Ezekiel. These beings are depicted with 4 faces, those of a lion, an ox, a human, and an eagle, each representing different aspects of God's creation: wild animals, domesticated animals, humanity, and birds. They possess 4 wings and are said to have bodies like burnished bronze. Their complex and multifaceted appearance underscores their role as guardians of sacred spaces, such as the throne of God and the Ark of the Covenant. Another enigmatic class of angels is the Ophanim, mentioned in Ezekiel's vision. Unlike the familiar features of seraphim and cherubim, the Ophanim are described as giant, interlocking wheels covered with eyes, capable of moving in any direction without turning. These wheels are filled with a radiant light and are closely associated with the cherubim, suggesting they share a divine purpose, possibly related to God's omniscience and omnipresence. The exact role of the Ophanim remains mysterious, but their constant motion and all-seeing nature imply a vigilant, watchful presence near the divine throne. These descriptions starkly contrast with the more familiar depictions of angels as benevolent, human-like beings. The terrifying and alien nature of biblically accurate angels highlights the vast gap between the divine and human realms. While these descriptions might seem unsettling, they serve a theological purpose. Angels, in their true biblical forms, are meant to evoke a sense of the divine majesty and the fear that often accompanies encounters with the holy. They are not meant to be comforting figures, but rather manifestations of God's will and power, often appearing at pivotal moments in the biblical narrative to convey God's commands or execute judgment. One conspiracy theory suggests that the true, terrifying appearance of biblically accurate angels has been deliberately obfuscated or downplayed throughout history. Proponents of this theory argue that religious and cultural institutions have intentionally promoted a more benign, human-like image of angels to make them more relatable and less frightening to the masses. Additionally, the approachable imagery of angels serves to reinforce their role as protectors and messengers of God, making them more palatable to believers and easier to incorporate into religious art and doctrine. Some believe that the traditionally beautiful and serene images of angels are actually demonic entities under the control of Lucifer. This theory suggests that Lucifer, once a high-ranking angel who fell from grace, uses deceptive tactics to manipulate how angels are perceived. By presenting demons as radiant, gentle beings, Lucifer is thought to disguise their true nature and lure people away from the true teachings of God and incite terror upon real angelic encounters. The Roman ruins of Guanabara Bay. In the 1980s, marine archaeologist Robert Marks made a startling discovery in Guanabara Bay, Rio de Janeiro. Diving into the bay's depths, Marks uncovered a collection of Roman amphorae, large clay jars typically used by Romans to transport goods like wine and olive oil. The discovery of these amphorae, initially believed to date back to the 3rd century AD, posed a significant challenge to the accepted narrative of the Americas' discovery. If authentic, these jars would suggest that Roman sailors might have reached Brazil over 1,000 years before the Portuguese explorer Pedro Álvares Cabral. Also, for those unaware, Cabral is traditionally credited with discovering Brazil in 1500, and this is almost universally accepted by the academic establishment. Robert Marks, already a renowned figure in marine archaeology, argued that these artifacts indicated a Roman shipwreck. He proposed that the ship, blown off course by a storm, ended up in Guanabara Bay. Supporting his claim, Marks pointed out the incrustations of barnacles and coral on the jars, suggesting they had been submerged for centuries. However, this theory was met with skepticism. Critics questioned the legitimacy of Marx's findings, pointing to his reputation for sensationalism and treasure hunting rather than scholarly rigor. The controversy deepened when a wealthy businessman, Americo Santarelli, claimed the amphorae were replicas he had commissioned and discarded in the bay in the 1960s. This revelation cast significant doubt on the authenticity of the artifacts. Adding to the complexity, Marx accused the Brazilian Navy of deliberately covering the site with silt to prevent further exploration. Marx suggested a conspiracy to preserve the historical narrative that honored Portuguese discovery. This claim has been denied by the Brazilian authorities, who have attributed Marx's ban from further explorations to allegations of artifact theft. Despite these controversies, some experts have defended the jar's authenticity. Elizabeth Will, a professor of classics at MIT and an expert on Roman amphorae, identified the jars as similar to those produced in the Roman colony of Kouas on Morocco's Atlantic coast. This analysis provided some academic backing to Marx's assertions, although it is important to note that the professor did not endorse Marx's specific claims. Today, the debate over the Guanabara Bay amphorae remains unresolved. No comprehensive, peer-reviewed archaeological survey has been conducted to definitively determine the origins of these jars. The Brazilian government's ban on underwater exploration in the bay has further impeded efforts to uncover the truth. Professional wrestling has long been a subject of controversy, with fans and critics alike debating whether it's an authentic sport or mere entertainment. Yet, a fascinating conspiracy theory persists, suggesting that professional wrestling is not only a legitimate sport, but that this truth is known only to a select few. The roots of this theory lie in the level of secrecy that has always surrounded professional wrestling. The sport's origins date back to the carnival days, where matches were predetermined to ensure audience satisfaction and revenue, while limiting risk to the performers. Audiences were blissfully unaware that the spectacles they saw, which involved great athleticism and legitimate injury, were not competitive sports events. As wrestling evolved into the spectacle it is today, the concept of kayfabe emerged, a term used to describe the portrayal of events within wrestling as real, despite their scripted nature. This concept has led to the widespread acceptance that wrestling is purely staged entertainment. At its most basic, proponents of this conspiracy theory argue that the intense physicality, the real injuries, and the grueling schedules of professional wrestlers are evidence of the sport's authenticity. They claim that while storylines and outcomes may be scripted, the athleticism and competition are very real. However, they go one step further, suggesting that by openly acknowledging that wrestling is sports entertainment, the elites are actually signaling the opposite. Proponents of this theory generally argue that all professional sports, except pro wrestling, are sports entertainment. This perspective suggests that the scripted nature of wrestling is simply a cover for a very real sport. According to this theory, while the elites are free to manipulate and script other so-called sporting events, they can actually enjoy the real sportsmanship of professional wrestling. This theory suggests that the elite enjoy watching professional wrestling largely because of the persistent belief amongst the masses that the outcomes are fixed. Proponents of this conspiracy theory argue that wrestling is also used for predictive programming, or as a subtle gesture to the elites who are watching and know the truth of the sport. One of the most popular wrestling factions in the 1990s was even named the New World Order. This wrestling faction, with its narrative of taking over the WCW and maintaining a shadowy control over the organization, paralleled the idea of the NWO conspiracy theory. It played into predictive programming by normalizing the concept of a seemingly unstoppable group seeking power. Meriwether Lewis, famed for co-leading the Lewis and Clark expedition, met an untimely end on October 10, 1809, at Grinder's Stand, a remote inn along the Natchez Trace in Tennessee. At the time of his demise, Lewis was on a journey from St. Louis to Washington, D.C., where he intended to address financial issues related to his role as the governor of the Louisiana Territory. The Natchez Trace, known as the Devil's Backbone, was a perilous route infamous for its bandits and rough conditions. On the night in question, Lewis reportedly behaved erratically, asking for alcohol but consuming little and pacing nervously. Later, sounds of gunshots were heard, followed by Lewis's voice calling out for water. The innkeeper, Mrs. Grinder, claimed she was too frightened to assist him and found him severely injured the next morning. The official explanation given by those close to Lewis, including Thomas Jefferson and William Clark, was that he had chosen to end himself. They cited his well-documented bouts of depression and earlier attempts at this act. Jefferson himself mentioned Lewis's sensible depressions of mind and noted that Lewis had arranged his affairs in a way that suggested he anticipated his own passing. However, this explanation has been challenged over the years. Some believe that Lewis might have been a victim of foul play, with theories ranging from a robbery gone wrong to more elaborate plots involving political adversaries. One of the most notable figures implicated in these theories is General Wilkinson, the former governor of the Louisiana Territory, who was later revealed to be an agent working for Spain. Wilkinson's involvement in numerous conspiracies, including a notorious plot with Aaron Burr, has led some to speculate that he might have orchestrated Lewis's demise. Further fueling the debate, when Lewis's grave was inspected in 1847, the commission responsible for erecting his monument suggested that his end was more likely due to foul play. However, they provided little evidence to support this claim. The controversy persists in part because of the conflicting accounts from the night at Grinder's stand and the fact that no thorough investigation was conducted at the time. The circumstances of Lewis's final hours have been the subject of renewed interest, with descendants and historians alike calling for his remains to be exhumed to allow for modern forensic analysis. Despite advances in technology that could potentially shed light on the mystery, the National Park Service has denied these requests, citing concerns over the integrity of the grave site. The theory that U.S. governmental agencies, such as the FBI and CIA, exert control over organized crime is a conspiracy theory that has gained significant popularity in the last decades. This perspective is fueled by well-documented historical instances of collaboration between the government and organized crime, particularly during the mid-20th century. One of the most cited examples is the collaboration between the CIA and the Mafia during the early Cold War period. This partnership is most famously exemplified in efforts to prevent communist influence in Italy's 1948 elections. The CIA, fearing a communist takeover in a key Mediterranean country, reportedly collaborated with American and Italian mafia figures to influence the election results. Mafia operatives were instrumental in manipulating labor unions and providing logistical support to anti-communist candidates, utilizing funds funneled through CIA channels. Similarly, during World War II, the U.S. government forged a controversial relationship with organized crime figures like Lucky Luciano. Luciano, a top mafia boss imprisoned in the U.S., was released early in exchange for his assistance in securing American ports against Axis sabotage and fostering intelligence connections. Cooperation with organized crime figures hasn't just been limited to Italian and Italian-American mafia organizations. For instance, in post-war Japan, the U.S. occupation government freed members of the Yakuza from prison and gave them access to large quantities of illicit drugs to sell. These freed Yakuza members were given free rein over their traditional domains. However, the occupation government wanted them to play a role in suppressing left-wing movements in Japan. During the occupation, there was a significant fear by the occupation government and many in Japan that the country was on the verge of falling under communist influence. The FBI's history is also fraught with controversies that have fueled conspiracy theories about its involvement with organized crime. Under the long tenure of J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI was accused of both shielding certain organized crime figures and using others to further its own agenda. Hoover, who led the FBI for nearly half a century, was notorious for his secretive and often extra-legal methods. Despite the public stance of fighting crime, it's argued that Hoover selectively ignored the mafia's activities in exchange for their quote-unquote support when needed. Critics of these conspiracy theories argue that they often oversimplify complex historical events and downplay the documented efforts of these agencies to combat organized crime. For instance, the FBI's extensive use of the RICO Act has led to significant prosecutions of mafia figures since the 1970s. This legal tool has been instrumental in dismantling organized crime networks, raising questions about why a government agency would cripple entities it supposedly controls. However, conspiracy theorists argue that the RICO Act is applied selectively only to those who have fallen from grace or who will no longer play ball. Spring-heeled Jack is a figure from Victorian folklore known for his terrifying appearance and extraordinary physical abilities. The legend began with sightings in 1837 in London, and over the years, the stories of Spring-heeled Jack morphed into a national phenomenon with reports of sightings across Great Britain. The initial reports described Spring-heeled Jack as a ghostly figure who would attack individuals unexpectedly, with the most notable early accounts involving assaults. In October 1837, Spring-heeled Jack made his first reported attack on Mary Stevens, a servant in London. While walking to Lavender Hill where she worked, Jack leaped at her, kissed her, and began tearing at her clothes while clawing her body. Mary's screams alarmed Jack, causing him to flee. Notably, this case, unlike the subsequent incidents, was not widely reported at the time. In one famous incident, a young woman named Jane Alsop reported that a cloaked figure rang her bell late at night, claiming to be a police officer or government official. The figure mentioned that Spring-heeled Jack was in the area, only to remove his cloak and breathe blue and white flames in her face and tear at her clothes with his claws. This creature then quickly jumped away before anyone could come to Jane's assistance. On February 28, 1838, shortly after the Alsop incident, 18-year-old Lucy Scales and her sister were on their way home from visiting their brother. During her police interview, Lucy Scales recounted that while passing through Green Dragon Alley, they encountered a cloaked figure lurking in a corner. As Lucy approached, the figure expelled blue flame towards her face, blinding and terrifying her to the extent that she collapsed, suffering from violent fits for hours. Her brother, upon hearing screams, rushed to the alley and found Lucy on the ground, with her sister trying to assist her. They described the assailant as a tall, slender man, draped in a large cloak, holding a lantern. The attacker fled without further interaction. Despite thorough investigations and numerous interrogations, the police failed to identify or apprehend the culprit. Similar attacks, characterized by a figure who could emit flames and possessed metallic claws, continued to be reported throughout the 19th century. However, reports died down substantially. The last recorded Spring-heeled Jack incident is thought to have occurred in Liverpool in 1904. Theories about the true nature of Spring-heeled Jack varied widely. Some believed he was a man or a group of men using the guise to terrify others, possibly as a form of social rebellion, or simply a macabre prank. This was supported by the suggestion that the Marquis of Waterford, known for his wild antics, might have been one of the people behind the early appearances. However, other explanations leaned towards the supernatural, with suggestions that he could be a malevolent spirit or minion of the devil. Modern theories propose that he could be an extraterrestrial being due to his unnatural abilities and characteristics, though this theory was completely unknown contemporaneously. Another modern science-based theory is that Spring-heeled Jack was a form of mass hysteria. This occurred during a period marked by profound social change, including mass urbanization and industrialization, and individuals were on edge. Many people had left behind the comfort of rural life, where individuals had dwelled together with the same families for centuries. They left behind lives where everyone knew everyone, for lives where virtually everyone was a complete and total stranger. As such, According to the mass hysteria theory, reports of the initial assaults were likely to fuel this collective unease and lead to mass panic. Further, Spring-Heeled Jack's extraordinary abilities, like leaping great heights and breathing fire, bear the hallmarks of urban legend rather than genuine phenomena. As sightings spread, they were amplified by sensationalist media of the time, which thrived on the public's fear of the unknown and the unexplained. While the true nature of this creature will never be known, it's no surprise that the legend of Spring-Heeled Jack has persisted long after his sightings have stopped. He became a staple character in Victorian folklore and has seen a great resurgence in interest all around the world in the early 21st century. The Vela Incident. On September 22, 1979, a U.S. Vela satellite detected a mysterious double flash of light in the South Atlantic near the Prince Edward Islands. The Vela satellites were designed to detect atmospheric nuclear explosions, and the double flash was characteristic of such detonations. However, subsequent investigations have failed to conclusively determine the cause of the flash, leading to various theories and speculations about what really happened. Initial interpretations of the Vela incident leaned heavily towards it being a nuclear test. The Vela satellites had previously detected nuclear tests by countries such as France and China, with the characteristic double flash pattern. However, this particular incident stood out because there was no corroborative evidence such as radioactive fallout or seismic data typically associated with nuclear explosions. One of the prominent theories is that the flash was a nuclear test, conducted jointly by Israel and South Africa. At the time, South Africa was developing its own nuclear capabilities, and Israel was known to possess nuclear technology, although it maintains a policy of ambiguity. While this was the most common theory at the time, other common suggestions included potential tests by Pakistan, India, the Soviet Union, or France. Some declassified documents and intelligence reports suggested that the two countries might have collaborated on a clandestine nuclear test. Despite these suspicions, the U.S. government was reluctant to officially confirm the nuclear test hypothesis. A panel of scientists, known as the Runa Panel, was convened to examine the data. They concluded that the flash was unlikely to be a nuclear explosion. They suggested instead that it could have been a signal caused by a micrometeoroid hitting the satellite itself or some other non-nuclear phenomenon. This conclusion, however, has been met with skepticism by some experts who believe the panel's findings were influenced by outside considerations. Adding to the mystery, there were several pieces of evidence that hinted at a nuclear origin. For example, the Arecibo Observatory in Puerto Rico detected a peculiar ionospheric disturbance at the same time as the Vela flash. Additionally, some reports indicated that sheep in southeastern Australia showed traces of iodine-131, a product of nuclear fission, shortly after the incident. The Babushka Lady is one of the most mysterious figures associated with the assassination of President John F. Kennedy on November 22, 1963. This woman, whose true identity remains unknown, earned her nickname because of the scarf she wore, tied in the manner often associated with Russian grandmas, or babushkas. Her presence at Dealey Plaza and her apparent filming of the motorcade during the assassination has made her a central figure in the many conspiracy theories that surround the event. Photographic and video evidence show the Babushka Lady standing near Elm Street, where the president was struck down. Unlike others in the vicinity, who reacted with shock and fear, the Babushka Lady remained calm and continued filming the scene even as chaos unfolded around her. This unusual behavior, combined with her prime location, sparked considerable interest from investigators and the public alike. The FBI, in its extensive post-assassination investigations, was particularly keen to locate and interview her. but despite their efforts, she never came forward. Further, her footage, which could potentially offer critical insights, has never been found. The mystery deepened when, in 1970, Beverly Oliver, a singer and dancer, came forward, claiming to be the Babushka Lady. According to Oliver, she had been filming the motorcade with a Yashica Super 8 camera, and after the assassination, she handed the undeveloped film to two men who identified themselves as FBI agents. They promised to return it, but never did. Oliver's story, however, has been met with widespread skepticism. For one, the camera she claimed to have used was not available until years after the assassination. Further, Oliver, who was 17 at the time, did not match the physical description of the Babushka Lady, who appeared older and more substantial in the images. Despite these inconsistencies, Oliver's claim has persisted in public discourse, partly because no other credible individual has come forward to claim the identity of the Babushka Lady. The idea that this woman could hold a piece of undiscovered evidence has kept the speculation alive, and her story has been a staple in the various conspiracy theories surrounding JFK. Some theories even suggest that the Babushka Lady's camera might have been something more sinister, like a weapon disguised as a camera. One theory that has gained traction in certain circles is the idea that the Babushka Lady was a Russian agent, and potentially the handler of Lee Harvey Oswald after his return to the United States. This theory posits that her presence at Dealey Plaza was no coincidence, but rather part of a larger intelligence operation. Oswald, who had spent time in the Soviet Union and married a Russian woman, was known to have significant Soviet connections. The suggestion here is that the Babushka Lady was sent by Soviet intelligence to oversee the final stages of an operation to eliminate President John F. Kennedy. Supporters of this theory often point to her calm demeanor and continued filming during the chaotic moments, which suggests she knew in advance what would happen. Her attire, particularly the babushka headscarf, is also seen as a potential nod to her Soviet affiliation, though this could be coincidental. One of the more fantastical theories about her claims that she was a time traveler who had come to observe the event. Proponents of this idea argue that her calm demeanor during the shooting suggests that she was not surprised by the events, because she already knew what would happen. This could explain why she continued filming while others fled or ducked for cover. As a time traveler, her mission might have been to document this pivotal moment in history without interfering, adhering to the commonly held belief in time travel lore that one must not alter the past. The idea also ties into the mystery surrounding her identity and the disappearance of the footage she supposedly captured. Additionally, her ability to leave the scene unnoticed and remain unidentified aligns with the notion of a time traveler who could blend in and escape without a trace. While this theory is highly speculative compared to other theories, it remains thought-provoking. Hey, it's your boy Jimmy here, taking another second to promote my channel. Remember to like and subscribe, and also share this video with any of your friends. Also remember to hit the notification bell since I'm constantly producing new content. Also, just a heads up, I have a very active Discord community with almost 150 members at this point, so come join and chill out with us. The link to the Discord community is in the description. Kurt Cobain, the iconic frontman of Nirvana, passed away in early April 1994. His early departure left an indelible mark on the music industry and sparked numerous theories and speculations about the circumstances surrounding it. Cobain, born in 1967 in Aberdeen, Washington, rose to fame with Nirvana's groundbreaking album Nevermind, which included hits like Smells Like Teen Spirit. He was known for his erratic behavior and frequent substance use, which compounded his health problems and personal struggles. In March 1994, Cobain's behavior became increasingly alarming. He was found unresponsive in Rome after an overdose, which some claim was an attempt, though others dispute this, suggesting it was an accidental overdose. Following this incident, Cobain entered a rehabilitation facility in Los Angeles, but left abruptly, returning to Seattle. On April 2nd, he purchased shotgun shells, allegedly for protection against burglars, and disappeared shortly after. On April 8, 1994, an electrician discovered Cobain's body in the greenhouse of his Seattle home. The scene included a shotgun, a box of shells, and a note addressed to Cobain's imaginary childhood friend. The note expressed Cobain's lack of enthusiasm for music and life, ending with a message to his wife, Courtney Love, and their daughter, Frances. The official ruling was that Cobain had taken his own life. However, this conclusion has been questioned by fans, friends, and private investigators. Tom Grant, a private investigator hired by Love, has been one of the most vocal critics of the official ruling. Grant argues that Cobain could not have pulled the trigger, given the substances found in his system on the toxicology report. He also points to alleged inconsistencies in the note and suspicious behavior by Love as reasons for his doubts. Additionally, various individuals close to Cobain, including his grandfather and some fans, have expressed their belief that the circumstances of his passing are suspicious. Despite these theories, official reviews of the case, including a re-examination by the Seattle Police in 2014, have upheld the original findings. The police have stated that the evidence supports the conclusion that Cobain acted of his own accord. Hyperborea, a concept steeped in ancient Greek mythology, has fascinated scholars for millennia. This mythical land, believed to lie far to the north of Greece, was described as a paradise beyond the domain of Boreas, the god of cold northern winds and winter. In Hyperborea, the sun is said to shine 24 hours a day, and the inhabitants live in unparalleled bliss for extremely long periods of time. Some authors have speculated that Hyperborea might be located within the Arctic Circle due to the description of the sun's unique behavior there, mirroring the real-life behavior of the sun in summer. Further, the Greeks depicted Hyperboreans as a race of giants who possessed superior physical and mental capabilities. The first detailed account of Hyperborea comes from Hesiod, an ancient Greek poet who painted a picture of a utopian society. Hesiod's account is ancient even by Greek standards, coming from the 8th century BC. Hyperborea was often associated with Apollo, the Greek god of the sun, music, and poetry. The Hyperboreans were described as devout worshippers of Apollo, sending him gifts, and in return, they enjoyed a peaceful existence free from the hardships of war and disease. The connection between Apollo and Hyperborea was deeply ingrained in Greek mythology, with legends stating that Apollo himself would visit Hyperborea during the winter months. The geographical location of Hyperborea was a subject of much speculation among ancient authors. Some identified it with Britain, suggesting that the mysterious land lay beyond the land of the Celts, in the ocean, and was characterized by its fertile land and temperate climate. Notably, Britain has a climate that is remarkably well suited to agricultural society, though the island is famously not incredibly sunny. Other writers proposed different locations, with the suggestion that Hyperborea lay beyond the Ural Mountains. More fantastical notions placed Hyperborea at the very edges of the world, including suggestions that it was located in the Arctic regions. Herodotus, the father of recorded history, mentioned the land, but expressed skepticism about its existence, a sentiment echoed by later scholars and historians. Notably, Herodotus was the first known person in the Western world to attempt to portray history as based on evidence, rather than based upon conjecture and mixtures of mythology. As such, his doubts about the existence of Hyperborea had a significant effect upon all subsequent historical and geographical analyses of this supposed region. Despite these doubts, the legend of Hyperborea persisted, with various cultures beyond the Greeks mentioning northern environments. In the fall of 2001, the United States experienced a series of anthrax attacks, which compounded the national anxiety already heightened by 9/11. The anthrax letters were first mailed on September 18, 2001, targeting media outlets and political figures. These attacks resulted in 22 anthrax infections, with 11 of those being the more severe inhalational variety, leading to the demise of 5 individuals. The letters containing anthrax spores were sent to several locations, including NBC News, the New York Post, and the offices of Senators Tom Daschle and Patrick Leahy. The Daschle letter, opened on October 15th, led to the temporary shutdown of government mail services due to the threat it posed. These letters were found to contain anthrax spores in a highly refined dry powder form, though there were conflicting reports on whether the spores were weaponized. Initial suspicion fell on foreign actors, given the timing and content of the letters, which included phrases associated with Al-Qaeda. However, the FBI soon redirected its focus to domestic sources when it was determined that the anthrax originated from an American laboratory. An American bioweapons expert was the first major suspect, and in a moment you'll see why I've chosen not to give his name. The FBI's intense investigation into this individual included surveillance and multiple invasive searches. He was eventually completely exonerated and won a substantial settlement from the U.S. government for defamation. Attention then turned to Dr. Bruce Ivins, another scientist at the U.S. Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases. The FBI linked Ivins to the anthrax used in the attacks, based on his access to the strain and other circumstantial evidence. Ivins' behavior during the investigation, including his hospitalization for mental health issues, raised further suspicion. He passed away in 2008, and shortly afterward, the FBI declared Ivins the sole perpetrator, although this conclusion has been contested by various experts and studies since then. Despite the closure of the case, numerous questions and theories about the attacks remain. Some believe that Ivins could not have acted alone due to the complexity of producing the highly refined anthrax spores. This theory posits that other individuals with similar expertise and access to the laboratory might have been involved. Supporters of this theory argue that the FBI's investigation overlooked potential collaborators and relied too heavily on circumstantial evidence against Ivins. Several scientific and investigative bodies, including the National Academy of Sciences, have criticized the FBI's methods and conclusions. They argue that the scientific evidence linking Ivins to the anthrax was not conclusive and flawed. Some suggest that Ivins' mental health struggles were exacerbated by the intense pressure of the investigation, possibly leading to his demise. A Government Accountability Office report also highlighted deficiencies in the FBI's investigative techniques, casting further doubt on the official narrative. The Eleusinian Mysteries, among the most significant religious rites in ancient Greece, were held annually in honor of Demeter and Persephone in the city of Eleusis. These ceremonies, centered in the town of Eleusis near Athens, were celebrated for nearly 2 millennia, from around 1600 BC until the late 4th century AD. The rites were shrouded in secrecy, with initiates sworn to silence about the specific rituals they experienced. The origins of the Eleusinian Mysteries are deeply rooted in Greek mythology, particularly the story of Demeter and her daughter Persephone. According to the myth, Persephone was abducted by Hades, the god of the underworld, leading Demeter to search for her tirelessly. Demeter, the goddess of agriculture, in her grief, neglected the earth, leading to widespread famine. Eventually, Zeus intervened, and Persephone was allowed to return to the surface to spend part of the year with her mother and part with Hades, symbolizing the seasonal cycle of growth and decay. Her return marked the arrival of spring, and her descent the onset of winter. The Eleusinian mysteries consisted of two main parts: the lesser mysteries held in spring, and the greater mysteries in autumn. The lesser mysteries served as a preliminary stage, purifying initiates and preparing them for the greater mysteries. The greater mysteries involved a grand procession from Athens to Eleusis, purification rituals, sacrifices, and fasting. Participants drank a special potion called kykeon, which some scholars believe may have contained psychoactive ingredients to induce visions. Upon arriving at Eleusis, initiates entered the telesterion, a large hall that could accommodate thousands of people. Inside, secretive rituals were performed, including dramatic reenactments of the Demeter and Persephone myth. These ceremonies culminated in a profound mystical experience, often described as a vision of the underworld or an epiphany of the gods. Despite extensive historical records, the exact nature of the Eleusinian mysteries remains largely unknown due to the strict vow of secrecy taken by all participants. However, several theories have been proposed about the activities within the telesterion. The rites likely provided a form of psychological transformation, offering comfort and a sense of eternal life to the initiates. Ancient testimonials, including those of Cicero and later philosophers, indicate that the mysteries helped participants overcome their fear of death. The mysteries continued to evolve over centuries, integrating influences from other cultures, such as Egyptian religious beliefs about the afterlife. Despite their prominence, the mysteries faced suppression with the rise of Christianity. Emperor Theodosius I officially ended the mysteries in 392 AD as part of a broader effort to eliminate pagan practices. The final blow came with the invasion of Alaric, king of the Goths, who desecrated the sacred sites in 396 AD. However, it is speculated that some of the practices associated with the Eleusinian mysteries were adapted into local Christian ritual and belief. Further, according to some theories, these beliefs and practices of the Eleusinian mysteries were subsequently adopted by secret societies such as the Illuminati. The theory that Reddit, one of the largest social media platforms, is a psyop orchestrated to disseminate doomer content, is rapidly gaining traction. According to proponents of this theory, Reddit is not merely a platform where people share ideas and memes. Rather, it's a tool used by unseen actors to push narratives of despair and hopelessness, particularly among younger generations. Within this framework, the theory that Reddit could serve as a psyop hinges on the platform's ability to influence user behavior and thoughts covertly. The platform's vast reach and the anonymity it provides make it a potentially powerful tool for shaping public opinion, especially when used to spread specific types of content. Doomer culture, characterized by its nihilistic and pessimistic worldview, has found a significant audience on Reddit. The term doomer originally referred to individuals deeply pessimistic about the future, often focusing on the inevitable collapse of society. The source of collapse is diverse, but is generally due to factors like environmental degradation, economic instability, and corruption at all levels of society. This subculture is epitomized by the doomer meme, which typically features a young man in a black hoodie embodying a sense of despair and resignation. The doomer phenomenon has expanded beyond mere meme culture. It has become a lens through which many young people, particularly those disillusioned with the current state of the world, view their future. This worldview is heavily promoted in specific Reddit communities, such as r/Collapse, where users share and reinforce content that aligns with the doomer mindset. Critics of Reddit suggest that the platform's algorithm, which prioritizes engagement, amplifies this content, driving more users towards pessimistic and defeatist attitudes. Proponents of the conspiracy theory argue that the spread of doomer content on Reddit is not a mere coincidence, but a deliberate act of psychological manipulation. They suggest that the platform is used by governmental or corporate entities to spread despair, thereby pacifying the population and preventing potential uprisings or resistance. The logic follows that if people are made to feel hopeless about their future, they are less likely to take action against systemic issues like economic inequality. Further conspiracy theorists argue that posting and engaging on doomer subreddits gives the sense of actually accomplishing something when nothing is being done. This theory ties into broader discussions about the role of psychological operations in the online space. With the rise of social media, psyops have, conspiracy theorists argue, evolved from traditional propaganda to more sophisticated forms of subtle influence. The anonymous and viral nature of Reddit content makes it difficult to trace the origins of specific narratives, allowing for the seamless integration of psyop tactics throughout the site. The Aurora incident of 1897 is an event in early modern UFO lore, marked by an alleged airship crash in the small town of Aurora, Texas. On the morning of April 17, 1897, residents were startled by what appeared to be a cigar-shaped airship that crashed into Judge Proctor's windmill. This caused a significant explosion that destroyed the windmill and the judge's flower garden. The local newspaper, the Dallas Morning News, published a detailed account 2 days later, describing the wreckage and an alleged extraterrestrial pilot who was reportedly found among the debris. This pilot was said to have been buried in the local cemetery following a small funeral, presumably in accordance with local tradition rather than the traditions of the extraterrestrial itself. According to reports, the wreckage was examined by townspeople and a purported expert on astronomy named T.J. Weems, who speculated that the pilot might have been from Mars. This detail catered to the late 19th century fascination with Mars and extraterrestrial life, influenced by contemporary astronomical theories and the widespread Mars fever of the era. The materials found at the crash site were described as being made of a metal resembling aluminum and silver, and there were claims of mysterious hieroglyphic papers found with the pilot. Over the years, the incident has attracted significant attention and skepticism, leading many to speculate about the authenticity of the event. Investigations throughout the 20th century, including efforts by the Mutual UFO Network, better known as MUFON, and various historians and journalists, have resulted in mixed conclusions. For instance, in a 1979 report, a journalist interviewed a local resident who claimed that the story was fabricated by the newspaper. The reasoning for this being a means to draw attention to the struggling town, which had been bypassed by the railroad and was economically declining. Despite ongoing skepticism and numerous investigations, no conclusive evidence has been found to fully confirm or refute the claims made in the original 1897 article. The pilot's grave remains unexcavated to this day, with modern technology such as ground-penetrating radar being employed to explore the site without disturbing it. Yet, local authorities have consistently denied permission for exhumation. The concept of the third eye is a widely recognized symbol across various spiritual traditions, representing an inner vision, heightened awareness, and a gateway to higher consciousness. This esoteric concept is most commonly associated with the chakras in Hinduism and the pineal gland in modern interpretations. The third eye is traditionally seen as a mystical and esoteric concept in various spiritual traditions, particularly in Hinduism and Buddhism. In Hinduism, the third eye is associated with the Ajna chakra, located between the eyebrows, which is considered the center of intuition, intellect, and spiritual insight. This chakra is believed to connect individuals to their inner selves and the universe, enabling them to perceive realities beyond the physical world. It is often symbolized by a bindi, a mark on the forehead representing the divine vision of inner reality. Buddhism similarly associates the third eye with mindfulness and awakening, a state where one transcends ordinary perception to achieve spiritual enlightenment. The third eye is seen as the path to realizing the true nature of existence, free from the illusions of the material world. In other cultures, the third eye has also been recognized in different forms. For instance, in Egyptian mythology, it is often compared to the Eye of Horus, a symbol of protection, royal authority, and good health. In Celtic traditions, there's evidence Druids believed in a metaphorical eye that granted insight into the unseen and the true reality of the world. In more contemporary interpretations, particularly in the West, the third eye is often linked to the pineal gland, a small endocrine gland in the brain. The pineal gland has been a subject of fascination due to its connection with light, sleep regulation, and the production of melatonin. Some holistic practitioners and spiritual teachers believe that the pineal gland, when activated, can lead to the awakening of the third eye, thereby enhancing intuition and spiritual insight. The association between the third eye and the pineal gland gained popularity in the 20th century, especially through the works of New Age thinkers and theosophists. This belief has led to various practices aimed at opening the third eye, such as meditation, visualization, and certain yoga practices that are designed to stimulate this gland and awaken higher consciousness. In many spiritual traditions, opening the third eye is seen as a crucial step towards achieving enlightenment. It involves transcending the limitations of the ego and the material world to gain a deeper understanding of the self and the universe. The Gedi Kuros, a statue purported to date back to the 6th century BC, has long been the center of debate over its authenticity and conspiracy surrounding it. Purchased by the J. Paul Getty Museum in 1986, the statue immediately drew skepticism from art historians for its fresh appearance and the details that seemed off, such as the fingernails. Despite initial scientific analyses supporting its antiquity, numerous factors have contributed to ongoing suspicions about its authenticity. A kouros is an ancient Greek statue type, representing a young, standing male who has apparently lost his clothing. Originating in the Archaic period, around 650 to 500 BC, these sculptures are characterized by their frontal stance, with one foot forward and hands clenched by the sides. They embody the ancient Greek ideal of youth and physical perfection, displaying stylized anatomical features. Each kouros, while adhering to a standardized form, exhibits regional variations in style and execution, reflecting the artistic conventions of different parts of Greece. Notably, the wide variety of what can constitute a kouros is partly what led to the controversy over the Gedi Kuros. Technical analysis of the Gedi Kuros highlighted both similarities and discrepancies with known archaic kuroi. While it adheres to the general measurements and proportions seen in genuine examples, there are a number of unusual features that have experts baffled. For instance, the Gedi Kuros has asymmetrical ears, which has not been observed amongst any ancient regional variations. Detailed observations of the statue's motion, tool marks, and the marble's characteristics offered both evidence for and against its authenticity. For example, The statue exhibits a subtle indication of motion towards the right, considered a strong piece of evidence for its genuineness. Yet differences in sculpting techniques and the unusual application of tools raised doubts among some scholars. Archaic kuroi typically exhibit unique features that tie them to specific regions or periods. In contrast, the Gedi Kuros seem to be a mixture of styles from various regions and periods, which did not align with any particular group of kuroi. This amalgamation of styles, combined with the immediate intuitive skepticism expressed by experts upon first viewing the statue, has been a significant factor in the debate over its authenticity. Interestingly, some experts felt an inexplicable sense of revulsion upon viewing the Gedi Kuros. Yes, apparently slightly off kuroi can trigger an uncanny valley-like effect for experts. The origin of the Gedi Kuros is also something of a mystery, adding to doubt about its authenticity and suggesting a broader conspiracy at play. In 1983, Gianfranco Becchina, a Swiss art dealer, presented the Kuros to the Getty Museum's curator. The statue, which was then in 7 pieces, was accompanied by documentation purportedly proving its authenticity. These documents claim that the Kuros had been part of Dr. Jean Laufenberger's private collection in Geneva, suggesting that Dr. Laufenberger had acquired it in 1930 from a Greek dealer. Notably, the documents included a letter from 1952 from a leading authority on Greek sculpture, who supposedly had authenticated the sculpture. However, the authenticity of the statue and its accompanying documents quickly came under scrutiny. Investigations by the Getty Museum uncovered several inconsistencies and anachronisms. For instance, the expert letter in favor of authenticity referenced a postcode that didn't exist until 1972. Further, a bank account mentioned in another document, supposedly from 1955, hadn't been opened until 1963. These discrepancies indicated that the documentary history of the Kuros had been fabricated, casting doubt on any claims about its provenance prior to 1983. One particularly prominent board member was strongly against the acquisition of the Kuros, as he believed it was a forgery on the basis of the inconsistent styles as well as the provenance issues. The controversy over the statue's authenticity divided the Getty Board of Trustees, with prominent board members resigning in response to the controversy. Once the most prominent opponents of the acquisition were off the board, the remaining board members proceeded to acquire the Gedi Kuros for $10 million in 1986. After numerous tests over the course of the 1990s, the Gedi Kuros museum label indicated, quote, Greek about 530 BC or modern forgery. In 2018, in response to the overwhelming evidence that the Gedi Kuros is indeed a forgery, it was removed from public display. If you like this video, please do me a huge favor and click the share button and send it to anyone who you think may enjoy it. Remember to like and subscribe and check out the Patreon or YouTube membership to support the channel further. Also, I release content regularly, so remember to click the notification bell and turn on all notifications for my channel. Also, get my Lazy Chill Lo-Fi beats on Spotify, YouTube Music, or Apple Music. Shout out to my patrons Iced Mocha, Kurt the Squirt, Monoxide Wendigo, Jeffer Metcalf, Z-Volts, Courtney Hammett, Zach Steele, Franz Tech, Unknown Delusions, Faye, Jack Russell, Boomslang, Spookiest Becky, Vespertine, Metanova, Will Roan, Crab Nebula, and Blasphemoose.